Let's go.
All right, we're live into the Facebook community. Let's talk about a topic that we don't usually talk about in real estate, and that's the psychology behind real estate. How we're all doing beneath the smile or beneath the serious face, right? There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we don't really talk about that happen with either ourselves or our clients, right? Or even those leads that we're talking to on a daily basis. So Randy, you have two special guests with us. Can you do me a favor and introduce them?
Yes, absolutely. Today we have Ariel and Cindi Blackwood. I guess not everyone's video might be stacked like mine, but when I did this, I was pointing to Ariel, and when I did this, I was pointing to Cindi. Blackwood, they are a lovely mother-daughter team who actually transact business in two cities, or really Arkansas at large, and then Atlanta, Georgia. They have a tremendous background, not only professionally in real estate, but also personally and professionally in, maybe I should just say this kind of like the psychology realm. We've got grief recovery, mental wellness, mental health, mental research, mental health research, if I can use my words properly. And I thought it would be a good conversation to have seriously, because if y'all follow as many real estate related memes as I do, I'm sure that you've all seen at this point the memes of realtors being like, as your realtor, I'm also your therapist, your financial advisor, your this, that, and the other. Like the memes about, okay, you know, they don't make wine bottles big enough for all the problems my clients dump on me and things like that. And it's funny. It's funny because it's true. But that's usually where the buck stops. The conversation I haven't seen professionally goes any further than the exchanging of memes and a few emojis. So I thought it would be a valuable thing to discuss with some folks who have some professional training in grief recovery and mental wellness, and to discuss how it can translate and make an actual impact in your business and in how you communicate with clients, and how the words you say and the words you use really impact each other. Not to rant, but routinely Tristan and Nick are posting in lab coats, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And messages like that. So this is a conversation that the entire real estate community needs to have, and I'm excited to hear from Ariel and Cindi today.
I love it. Thanks for being with us.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, thanks for being with us. Let's do this. Ariel, Cindi, if you want to do a quick intro as to who you are, and then let's get right into this.
Sure. So I've been in real estate since prior to 1998. In new home construction, a lot of different realms, to then becoming a sales person and then a broker and running large teams and small teams. I've done property management, and then after the housing crisis and meltdown, then I spent years in the default industry dealing with both sides, dealing with HUD and all the major contracts, and then also working with buyers and investors. And so there's the whole gamut of real estate, it seems, that I've done for many, many years, and still absolutely love it. Love different aspects of it. And yeah, it's just something that it's not work to me. It's something that I enjoy doing every day, and I'm still excited to be a part after all these years.
I love that.
And I grew up in a home of two nationally recognized brokers, and I said, you know, what they say to never say. Never. I said, I will never do that. I hate it. I hate real estate. Don't even ask me about it. And so here I am eating my words every day. But my history is in research, theology, and suicidology, which ties very closely into what we're going to talk about today. And I decided to switch over into real estate when I actually discovered how I could use my research and suicidology skills and experience in the mental health industry in real estate. So I love it so far. I'm absolutely loving it, and I've got the best teammate and leader right here with me.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's good. I love this topic because a lot of us suffer quietly through this whole process. And I think that's probably the one issue that we need to talk about the most. How do you go about helping your clients that don't have the easiest situation, whether they're losing a home, transitioning from, let's say, a home that they were living in for years that now they're going to lose because they have to sell, right? Or in some cases, they're doing a short sale. How do you tackle on something like that that's so sensitive? I mean, you've been doing it for years, Cindi, and you've been doing it successfully. How do you go about something like that?
Basically keeping it about the people, because at the end of every day, we are all people, regardless of the transaction at hand. And when I'm talking to people, regardless of their situation and their circumstance, it is remembering that they're a person and they have emotions and feelings, and that this isn't just paperwork and how to get to the end. It is what happens from the moment that I speak with them, hearing their story. And then once I know their story, learning how to respond to them appropriately, and not be, if it's not something exciting, then to be sensitive to that and understanding and assuring to them, because they need assurance and they need to feel like that someone's there to help them and hold their hand and basically get through it, and not act like it's just another transaction to get a paycheck. So that is something that, people say that we're people, but it's about listening. And listening is a skill that so many people do not have, and it's a learned skill. You have to practice it. You have to work at it, but truly listening to people and coming to an understanding of where they are at the time, meeting them where they are.
That's a challenge, I think, for a lot of us in the industry who are, and nothing against coaches, but who are coached to think about sales, right? To think about the numbers, think about how many people you need to talk to. It's a numbers game, right? They drill that into a lot of real estate agents, and it almost makes you feel like, well, you're just another number. I just have to talk to you and get to the next person, right? Oh, I just closed you. It's just it's part of the volume. How do you separate that? How do you start separating that as a real estate agent, as a human, right? Because you said we do have a challenge listening.
Right. You want to speak to that?
You want to take that, Ariel?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Well, I think it starts at the inception, right? We do online lead generation, and it starts right there. When I get from my Chime app, hey, you have a new lead, that immediately, rather than just a lead, that becomes a person to me. And that took practice, because I got, it's easy. Like, this person's interested in purchasing a $3 million home. Woohoo, paycheck for me. But I start thinking about that person as a person right then. And when I give them a call on the first call, I'm not saying, hey, congrats on wanting to sell your home, or congrats on wanting to buy this home. I ask, what's your story? What's going on? Fill me in on your life, and what's made you want, or what's making this move happen, right? And I think that is something that from start to finish, that is crucial in, like she said, meeting them where they are, and something that we do. She always says, when you keep it about the people, the money will come. And so I told that to a client the other day. She said, you know what? I just believe that if this is meant to be, it will be. And I'm so happy that we have you guys here, because we know you believe that too. And we know you're on our team, not just on the team of trying to get us to buy the most expensive house. And so I hope that answers your question in a lot of ways.
That does, Ariel. And to either one of you, and Randy, let me know if you have anything on this one. Barry's asking a really good question, which is transitioning from what both of you said. It says, I consider divorce situations similar to the passing of a loved one, and agree with people that the most important thing is people, right? In listening and all of that great stuff. But what's the best way to approach these people with the situation that they have, to be able to connect with them, to open that door for us to be able to work together. How do we go about doing that?
Well, in grief recovery that I've been trained in, then basically we talk about the definition of a loss is the change in a circumstance or a familiar pattern of behavior. So we have losses, everyone does, and they're positive and negative. So for example, positive is when a child goes off to college. It's a change in a familiar pattern of behavior. You're excited about that, but it's still a loss. Grief is the conflicting feelings that come as a result of that loss. So specifically speaking of divorce, divorce is a loss, and grief is the conflicting feelings. So to answer your question, if you look at that through an understanding of this is a loss to that person, then it helps you to help them say, okay, let's talk about what this looks like for you and what's the next step, and just basically breaking it down to listening to them once again and just taking small steps according to what their needs are and what their desires are, and being patient with them, just being patient with them. And we work with people all the time, and they may be like, oh, I'm getting a divorce, I need to get out there and get this done. And then they take a breath. And us saying, you know what? Yeah. That is fine, because we're here to help you whenever you're ready to make that next step. So making that connection that, like she said, we're on your team, but not just today or next week. If it takes you a year to decide that that's the right thing for you, then we're here there. We're here for you at that time as well.
And piggybacking off of that a bit, past the getting your foot in the door, I think another thing that's been extremely helpful, speaking of loss, I lost my brother to suicide in 2008, which is, for all of you people saying, what kind of weirdo studies suicidology, there's kind of your background and history of why. So, but guiding them through the process too, just like you're saying, after a loss, whether it be a divorce, a death, what have you, something that we use in just a little trick of the trade to walk people through it is we encourage our sellers to walk through every room of the home, remember memories that happened in each room, and say goodbye to every room. So when we sold my childhood home that I lived in until I was 13, after my brother passed away, I went to every single room, thought through, wow, I loved the family Christmases we had here. Oh, I remember when my brother held my head up to the ceiling fan in this one and put me in the trash can in this one. And, just silly things. And then I said goodbye to those rooms, and that's given me so much peace about selling. And that's a tip that I think all agents can use that you don't really think about, especially for sellers.
So let me ask Barry's question, because I kind of wanted to ask it in the same way. How do you talk to someone who's grieving a loss professionally about the ensuing sale that needs to take place? How do you do it to be respectful of the emotions they're experiencing, but also understanding this sale needs to happen? And I obviously, and you want to be the person to help them. How do you professionally and respectfully navigate that conversation without, as Barry said, coming across as a sleazy salesperson, just chasing a payday?
Well, I believe that they can figure that out pretty quickly, as far as just your how your sympathy or empathy or whatever that is. You can read that with people, and the way that you come across and speak to them, they will be able to determine that. I can think of one example of someone, a young man that was going through a divorce, and I had an appointment, and I went over to his house, and the place was a wreck. And like you said, the sale needed to happen. He didn't want it to happen, but it needed to happen. And he was just paralyzed. And I could tell that pretty quickly. And so he showed me around, and we talked about things, but instead of me saying, all right, look, to get this house sold, you're going to have to clean this place up, and you're going to need to do this, this, and this, because he wasn't capable of doing that. And I just said to him, okay, let's talk about this. And what is the first step? Let's talk about a timeline. And when can you do this one thing? And then I would call him. Hey, how's it going? How did you get that one thing done? Okay, let's move to the next thing. And breaking it down, because people get overwhelmed when they're in situations that are not pleasant or whatever, grieving, whatever it is, then they become very paralyzed. And I think it's just breaking that down to help them to understand, what can I do next to get to that next point.
And to touch on your follow-up there, Barry, he says, I'm referring to contacting these people most likely by mail through court records. It is, I would say, harder on paper. My advice would be, without digging too deep, also don't be scared to address the obvious. And what I mean by that is, maybe you say something like, hey, I got your information from the divorce court records, and I understand that this may be a really difficult time for you. Like, I think people will respect that. I think people are scared to say that. And it is difficult on paper, right? And maybe not everyone will, and maybe they'll get offended, but I would think that people would be, right? They would be comfortable with that. Hey, they know that we have those records. This is where I found it, and I realized this could just be a really difficult time for you. I'd love to help you through this process and make it as seamless as I can, even amidst this difficult time.
So you bring up a good point that I would say a lot of people's natural inclination would be to treat the topic like taboo. Mm-hmm. But yes. you mean to, and what you're saying is to address it head on. I know, the terminology and the words you use in these situations are especially sensitive. So what are some of those phrases and terms that you should use and should stay away from? And, you could incorporate into your, mail or emails or text messages or your marketing in those scenarios.
Can you tell we're both like chomping at the bit on this one? You can take it first.
Okay. I think a lot of that comes back. I mean, like, I could literally write a book on things not to say, and people come from a place of good intentions when they say things. So that's what I've learned, is I give people grace. However, to answer your question, Randy, it is to not be so, in my opinion, so forthcoming with "you need to," because even though you may have experienced the same thing, you don't have the same feelings. That relationship was different. And we don't have the same relationships with people. And just not being so forthcoming of "you need to," but okay, let's talk about what this looks like for us to help you to move forward. And just coming at it from a different way, instead of kind of a finger pointing of what they need or don't need to do. And so just be careful with giving advice, because that is something that it can really be a big turnoff, and it can be hurtful, actually, to do that. So she's a diversion.
Well, people are commenting so much on your accent, and I'm thinking maybe I'll start talking with one so they think I'm cute.
No, please.
You used to have one.
Yeah. I love that. I was just gonna say, the phrase that really gets me is, "I totally understand." Okay, no, you don't. You might have gone through a divorce. You might have lost someone, even perhaps in the same way. You don't understand my loss. Every loss is different. So I clearly get really heated about this one, but those are words that people only mean them to try and console you. Don't say it. I beg of you. Don't say you understand, because you don't.
All right. I love that, because we're trained, and this goes back to the coaching part. Oh, I understand. And I've always disliked that. Right. Well, I think the approach should be more of what you said, Cindi, at the beginning, which is just shut up and listen. Right. If you want to acknowledge that, don't say "I understand," right? In your way of acknowledging it, right? Just really listen and be there to care. And I think part of us as real estate agents and as humans, it's easy for us to just go right through it and not understand truly what people are going through. So, Ariel, I love what you said that, and that's really important because a lot of us are trained to say, "Oh, yeah, I understand," but right, it's kind of like just what we're using to counter what it is that we think you're feeling, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that's even a sales tactic is called feel, felt, found. I feel where you're coming from. Our clients have felt the similar pain, so you're automatically assuming their loss is like yours or like somebody else's. So that is some quality advice that is oftentimes taught improperly, as Tristan just mentioned.
yeah, and then there's a great question by Annette saying, well, where do you get these types of leads from or clients from, right? And my dog wants to chime in, but he doesn't know. So
there it is. You can't not say it. You can't not say chime in when I'm on the webinar.
I'm always saying chime in. By the way, if you haven't checked out Chime, check it out. So we're friends with two different attorneys. One of them is a probate attorney, and the other one is a family attorney who handles divorces. So they often send us both, right? Randy, how about you? Anything on that?
Me?
Yeah, like what else would you suggest? Or Ariel or Cindi, where do you guys get these leads from or people that are in similar situations?
It's going to be, professional relationships that you have, lawyers, accountants, financial advisors.
Also, I think in your networking, then don't be afraid to share your story, because if someone knows that you've had a certain experience, then they could gravitate to you because they already feel a sense of comfort because you have gone through that. So not being afraid to, when it's appropriate, and interject that into people so that they know who you really are. And that's a great connection.
All right. I love that. So some great ones. Let's see what we've got here. Barry's saying, well, what about something along the lines of, I can't imagine what you're going through right now. Is that something that?
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. I think that's, Randy, that's where we would go more along the feel part, right? Like, yeah, totally don't understand it, but I'm very sorry, right? Sympathetic. I love that.
I'll even chime in there too, Tristan.
I love it.
Perhaps if this is something she taught me, people will say, I love you, but it really frustrates me when X and X. Instead of I love you, but, or instead of, I couldn't imagine what you're going through, but if we just switch that to, and I can't imagine what you're going through, and we're here to help you. It doesn't negate the first thing you say. Because when I say, I love you, but you drive me nuts. Okay, well, do you love me? Because you just negated exactly what you said. So I would just, and these are nitpicky, but just things to think about.
This is nitpicky, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
And they're very important to think about.
And I'll just say to that even though, like she said, that may seem to be a very minimal thing, when people are in certain situations, y'all, they are sensitive. And just that one word changing from but to and can really make a difference for someone.
And what would you say to those people that are focusing on reaching out to these clients? Is it, do you find it, would you look down on people that are looking to reach out to people that have had challenges like divorce, losing homes through short sales or possible foreclosures, notice of default, any type of loss through a probate? Is that something that you think agents should reach out to people for to help them? Or is that something that you don't think we should do? And that's obviously an opinion, right? I'm just asking you, Cindi.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that, but I think we're all wired differently, and we all have certain things that we all have our own things that we're passionate about. And that doesn't mean that this is a good person and that's a bad person, but we have different wiring. And I just think if you're a person that's less sensitive, then no, you should not be reaching out to those people. Or if you're people like me that just want to hug everybody and just, bake cookies for them, then I think that that's okay. So know who you are and what your strengths are, what your passions are, and then ask yourself those questions about who you reach out to in those circumstances.
Well, Cindi, you had a lot of experience in short sales, right?
Yes.
At some point, yeah. So can you kind of just talk to us about that experience and where a lot of that, how you organize that business?
Well, I'm actually doing one right now. There's always a lot of emotion involved in that. And a lot of it for a short sale is people do feel trapped, and you're helping them to see beyond that. So if this is what needs to happen, then let's walk through this together so that you can be able to get that behind you and be able to move on with your life. So that's when I think of short sales, I'm like, okay, we got to get through this so that you can move forward, get this behind you. Because short sales and foreclosures, but short sales specifically, you have to have a hardship. You can't just wake up one day and decide that that's an option for you. So there's a hardship involved. And when there's a hardship involved, then that brings in all that we're talking about today, big time. So once again, if you're an agent that you're not very sensitive to that, then perhaps short sales shouldn't be your, you shouldn't do those.
I agree. I think too many people that aren't really prepared to go in it with the client emotionally or to understand that situation are the ones calling, and then they give us a bad name, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like, oh, just another car salesman, right? And that's the problem, right?
So with that, what would be some recommendations that y'all have to improve emotional intelligence in that matter? Whether they want to use and improve the emotional intelligence for helping short sales, or they just have very little of it and recognize they need more.
Get a therapist.
It's true.
Well, step number one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, so, oh gosh, I could talk for 4 hours on this. Emotional intelligence doesn't just happen overnight. It's something you have to work really hard at. I think people, when I say get a therapist, I mean, be willing to work really freaking hard on yourself and then get a therapist, because the therapist isn't going to fix you. I mean, Brene Brown is an incredible resource to listen to. She's great. And I'm really picky about therapists and people who speak about mental health. She's awesome. Go check out her podcast. I listen to her on YouTube while I'm in the shower. Like, just fill your mind with positive information, affirmations, follow accounts on Instagram. Just surround yourself with information that could be helpful. Yes. And she actually has a thing on Netflix right now, I think, too. That would be my recommendation. I mean, there's so much. We have unlimited information at our fingertips. And if you're not seeking it out, that's on you.
And one thing that actually Ariel taught me is to, when you work with someone, to know that they're going to ask you hard questions. And so not be afraid to work with someone who's going to ask you the hard questions, because otherwise, are you really digging deep? Because emotional intelligence is something that definitely takes a lot of work. And if you're willing to, then you're going to have someone ask you the hard questions and then be willing to dig to find those answers.
That's a really good point. I love that, because I think the deeper you get into it, those questions come in, and they're not always comfortable questions, right? So I think the experience comes in being able to work on yourself first, like you both are saying, right? Work on yourself first so that you're better prepared for these situations, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people, right? And your people skills, along with emotional intelligence, it's got to be there. And if it's not, then just probably work on different types of people in the business, not these. But these can also be the most rewarding as well.
Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So-
have so many friends who were clients. It's great.
So let's take a quick 90-degree turn here and about how you work with someone who may have very low emotional intelligence, or if you have a client who says offhanded, incredibly offensive things, even if they're not trying to be rude, there's just those people who just spout rude things and they don't even know what they're doing. How do you recommend handling those people? Do you fire them as a client and refer them to your least favorite agent in the market, or do you address them head on? What is your
I'm gonna let
strategy?
you do this because she constantly says, honey, we need to soften your edges, because I just give it right back to him. So don't listen.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So that's what I was hoping she would say, because it's true, because of years, this is just years of experience, as I do say this to her regularly when she's like, why can you believe this? And I just say, honey, that's where my Southern accent really comes in, because I can really code it and say, honey, we need to soften your edges. And see, it just sounds better with the
Nothing about my edges that are soft.
yeah. So we're still working on that. We'll get there. But, Randy, over the years, a lot of times when people respond in a way that seems like they're just blurting it out there and it can be offensive, a lot of times there's pain underneath that. So behind anger is always pain. Okay. So once again, if someone realizes that you're not going to come back at them because that's what they're expecting, and that you're just, willing to say, okay, well, let's talk about this. Now, I'm not talking about somebody that cusses you out up and down and treats you terrible. Yeah, I'm not working with someone like that. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt of what's behind, why are they acting this way? And let me give it a shot as far as just trying to treat them like a person and let them know that I am here to help, but we have to get on the same page as far as why they're coming at me like that. But I do believe that you should give people a chance and figure out what it is, because so many times, examples just start flying through my head about people that upon first meeting, you think, oh my goodness, is this going to work or not? And they end up being wonderful clients that refer business to you over and over again. It was just because you were patient with them and that you weren't afraid of them, because I'm certainly not. And I'm not afraid to call people out on things, but it's in a way of listening to them. We're back to listening and seeing if there is some reason behind their actions.
All right. So on that, what do you say to somebody that's coming across a little challenging or very challenging only because they're not in the right place, because they're suffering, right? Do you, like you said, do you sometimes let them know that they're being a little aggressive, or how does that process work?
Yes. So definitely, if they're saying something, then, I do have that ability to just smile and say things that can be very direct, but it doesn't feel as direct because I'm smiling and because I'm, sapping everything. Everything's coated in sugar. So once again, when you're Randy's shaking his head. He's heard this before, but it is true that that you can do that. So yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific example, but if someone is coming at me, then yes, I am very firm. They know quickly that they're not going to run all over me. But there are certain, depending on what they're saying, then there are certain ways that I can come back and say, okay, well, let's talk about what this looks like. And you're just getting them to open up and talk more. And that's usually it. They're spitting stuff out. And then you're trying to get them to talk a little bit more. And once they start talking more and let those walls down, then that's when we can figure out what's going on here and if we can truly help them.
Again, it's just about figuring out people's story, right? Everybody has one. So the more that you can ask questions and get them to talk, you're going to find out more about their story. And I bet you the longer you listen, there will be something that you can relate to them on.
All right. So on that, I would assume that these deeper conversations are more easily had in person, but that's just an assumption, right? What happens if you're starting this conversation off by phone, like you were saying, Ariel, sometimes it's an online lead and you just happen to be talking to them and they're not in a good place because something like this is going on. How does that conversation sound on the phone? And do you go deeper on the phone or do you wait to meet them in person? Either one of you can take that.
I usually let them lead there. I'll ask questions. If it's a first conversation and I'm calling them because they looked at a property on my Chime website, then I mean, I'm usually not like, hey man, what's going on in your life? I usually just let them kind of lead that. Something that I have been working on improving is I for some reason, when I answer the phone, like have a really high pitched voice, and I don't have a high pitched voice. And so I'll be like, hello, this is Ariel. Thanks for like, and it's so annoying. So something that actually has really been helpful on my phone voice is just accepting my deep, raspy voice. And when I call, like, hey, this is Ariel with AtlantaHomes.io. How are you? And I'll usually like slouch on the couch at some kind of like comfortable position, because when I'm sitting here and they don't open up as much. So even just your phone voice can play such a big role. I've had people open up to me on the phone so much since a friend of mine who actually works for Chime called me out on it. He heard me on the phone and said, hey, you should try this. It's made a huge difference. So a little tip there is just, you don't have to like make your voice deeper, but you know, being conversational, I think that's a great way. And then on Zoom as well, you know, show up in a ball cap if you want. I mean, this doesn't have to be so formal, and I think that lets people's walls down.
Also, asking them questions on the phone, it will help them to open up. So if someone is being very direct and they're saying, yeah, we're trying to get our house sold because you know, we're trying to relocate. Okay, well, do you have a reason you're relocating? Is it family? Oh, okay, well, is it, you know, and so you start to ask questions about that. And then if they ever say grandkids, all you got to do is ask. I mean, and so that's a way to get in with people, and they love to talk about that. But of course, in person is the best, you know, and so I like to get in front of people. I know we have COVID and all of that, but I mean, getting in front of people, people will let walls down so much faster when you're in front of them. So I always tell Ariel, I said, when we get in front of them, they love us. So it's just making those appointments and getting in front of people as soon as we can is usually very helpful.
Hank asked a good question about what is your approach on handling people who may feel differently regarding the whole COVID quarantine situation, or how do you get someone to talk about the way they feel before you kind of show your cards? Because obviously there's some type of mirroring that needs to take place there.
I usually just say, hey, you know, the next step of people in your situation, I like to meet them face to face. So would you rather meet for coffee or via Zoom? And that kind of opens it up. Like, one, I'm only giving them two options and both involve meeting me. Two, that can sometimes open it up for, oh, Zoom. And then you can kind of pick up a little bit on it. I mean, I don't say anything. I don't say anything about politics. I don't say anything about COVID. Like, who cares? I'm working for you. So if you want to meet and do everything via Zoom and you want me to do virtual showings for you, I'm happy to do it. You just tell me. Just as long as you're just chill about it, I think it doesn't cause any riffraff.
That's very
chill
true
about it. That's why Tristan's so good, because he's always so chill.
I was born chill, dude.
Born to chill.
Born chill. All right. So anything that, and Cindi, Ariel, or Randy, anything that I missed that you wanted to go over here as we're nearing the top of the hour here?
Someone had said something up here about like being at the closing table and how do you address, you know, a closing when it's super exciting for agents because it's almost payday, and then You know, we're used to like popping champagne. And I did want to touch on this. Every closing is not about popping champagne. So be sensitive to that. If this is something that's really difficult for people, don't bring a freaking bottle of Vouv. Like, just listen and be aware of what people are going through. Maybe bring them a closing gift that is more personal. I don't know, not like a Hallmark sympathy card, like don't be cheesy, but you know, something that's not as celebratory. And I think just the way that you present yourself at the closing table too can be helpful for that. Like, hey, how are you today? Like, are you feeling all right? All right. And you don't have to call them out, like, tell me how you're feeling. But I think just your energy is louder than your words. And so maybe even just sitting in your car beforehand and being like, hey, this is a really tough day for this person. So I'm getting 100 G's in commission, and that's great, but I can celebrate with my friends later. I'm going to go in and be here for that person. And I think just having that mindset, it will become clear to them.
All right. I love that. That's a really good point, because a lot of us just go from one thing to another really quickly. And this is the case for most people in general, regardless of the business we're in. And I think taking a moment to be able to pause between meetings or between engaging with people, I think that can go a long way, which is kind of what you were saying, Ariel. It puts you into that right mindset of who you're going to talk to next, right? Yeah, I think it's very important. So, Randy, anything that I missed that you wanted to say, buddy?
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. Ariel, Cindi, y'all did an awesome job.
Very. We got a lot of great responses in the Facebook community and here. Remember, this one was sponsored by Chime, even though we didn't talk about the CRM. We did, and Randy works for Chime, obviously. We usually talk about Cookout, but this time we didn't. So I know people are like, what?
I almost had Cookout yesterday. I went for Chinese takeout instead.
What? Why?
I know.
Okay.
Look at me, switching it up. Who am I anymore?
This is why we didn't talk about Cookout this time.
Both healthy options. It's fine.
Well, look, this was completely different than what we do, and I loved it. And a lot of people said this was great. They're asking for the recording. They're saying you two are a breath of fresh air. Not talking about Randy and me, by the way. It's Ariel and Cindi. So both of you did awesome, and I'd love to do this again in about 30 to 45 days. And Randy, I think we could come up with some great questions. And Cindi and Ariel, if you can come up with some scenarios that you've been through, that you can come up with questions that we didn't address for situations that we have in real estate, I think that we could go in deeper on this.
Yeah, and I'm always a resource as well. I mean, for other agents as well as clients, you can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm at Ariel Sells ATL, ARIEL Sells ATL, and I'm pretty responsive on there. So if you have a question, like, no question is dumb. So feel free to reach out to me, or on Facebook. I'm on Facebook as well, and she is too, but she's less active. So just reach out to me.
Ariel, is it Ariel Sells ATL? That's it?
It is. Yeah.
We're putting that on there.
There you go. Perfect.
All right. So any questions you have, reach out to her, and then she can connect you with Cindi if you do want to talk to Cindi as well. And both of you, thank you so much. If we have referrals for you, what areas do you cover?
All of Central Arkansas, and then Atlanta and the metro area.
I love it. Thank you two for being on. And Randy, thanks for being awesome, buddy. Thanks for running the sales floor for all of Chime. And we'll see you guys next time. If you missed this or you want to watch it again, it's in the Facebook community. It's being recorded and it'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel in LabCoatAgents in about 4 or 5 hours. So give us a little bit of time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies.